Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn out a poem 428, Taking Up the Fair Ideal. Now, this is a really, I think, important poem in the canon of Emily Dickinson's work. It's often not been anthologized or even really addressed by scholars, but we're going to make the argument it may be one of the most radical of all the poems that she wrote. The question behind this poem is a simple one. What do you do when your ideal that you've held up, as being so important, starts to show certain kinds of cracks? You'll remember in our study of Miller's Crucible that there's a moment when Reverend Hale will say that theology is a fortress. One crack in that fortress can lead to all kinds of problems, and I think Emily is playing a very similar game. What do you do with a flawed ideal? That's the question. Now, some have asked, is the ideal a person? Some have even speculated that it's Emily's pal Sue. Some have speculated that maybe she's talking about politics or theology or even government ideals. Either way, the poem can be read as a powerful questioning of what does it mean when you discover that the thing you held to be most ideal is in fact not perfectly ideal at all. Our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've already been able to go through our set of introductory comments as well as the preceding 427 poems. We just finished with 427, I'll clutch and clutch. If you have read the preceding 427 poems, you will not be surprised that Emily, the iconoclast, is at times going to challenge the ideal, and she'll certainly play the game here. Now, the moment that you see the word ideal, you probably, as students of 303, are ready to start thinking about Plato's Republic. No doubt, that is the quintessential text of the ideal republic or the ideal state. Is the poem here a critique of Plato's Republic? It's possible. It may have something to do with the recognition of Sue's flaws. It's possible. Again, as we said, this may be one of Emily's most radically overlooked poems. Let's take a look. Taking up the fair ideal just to cast her down. When a fracture we discover or a splintered crown makes the heavens portable and the gods a lie. Doubtless Adam scowled at Eden for his perjury, cherishing our poor ideal till in purer dress we behold her glorified. Comforts search like this till the broken creatures we adored for whole stains all washed, transfigured, mended, meet us with a smile. Now we want to point out the punctuation. Notice the only exclamation point at the end of the first stanza. And notice especially all of the dashes, especially in the second part. It's as if she's stumbling towards the question, what do you do? What do you do when you realize that your ideal has warts, if you will? Notice we'll say the fair ideal, we'll get to the poor ideal, right? Taking up the fair ideal, that is to say, taking up, looking at it, studying it closely, just to cast her down. And again, readers of this poem have often said the her here might be Sue. In other words, Emily holds Sue kind of up on this pedestal, and then she has to come to the recognition that Sue maybe isn't everything she thought her to be. But of course, her can here represent the church, her can here represent government, her here can represent theology. I'll leave it to you to decide. Taking up the fair ideal just to cast her down. When a fracture, and again, that's why I quoted that line from Arthur Miller's Crucible, that the crack or a fracture, we discover. Notice it's not I discover. We discover. Or a splintered crown. I mean, it's a brilliant word picture. Splintered crown makes the heavens portable. In other words, what happens when you begin to doubt the very ideal that you've held to be sacred? Here she mentions, notice her use of the S at the end. Notice it's not heaven, but rather heavens. And then she'll play the same game in the next line, and the gods alike. Notice Emily's, I mean, she's very, very witty here, I think. She doesn't say the God alike, but rather the gods alike. In other words, those polytheistic thinkers had to come at some point to the notion that maybe Zeus isn't the ideal. And of course, immediately we are thinking about Socrates, aren't we? And his challenging of the gods, and of course, apology itself, right? You'll remember that Socrates convicted and punished, executed for being, among other things, an atheist. Doubtless, and then it's almost as if the use of the dashes here tell us that Emily is struggling with, should I say this, should I not say this? Doubtless, Adam, but notice in quotation marks, scowled at Eden for his perjury, exclamation point. Now, of course, here we'll immediately think not only of the Genesis 3 passage, but obviously of Milton in Paradise Lost, no doubt. Then she'll pause, and she'll go from what's it like to finally meet the ideal in some ways splintered, right? Cracked, splintered. And she'll then say, cherishing our poor ideal. And here by poor, what can we mean here? That, somehow affected by our recognition that it wasn't as perfect as we thought. Till in pure dress we behold her glorified. Now we're going to get to the transfigured thing in a second. Maybe a reference to the Luke 9:28-36 transfiguration of Christ. Cherishing our poor ideal till in pure dress we behold her, again back to her, glorified, comforts, search, like this. Now, the referencing to this is fascinating. Till the broken creatures we adored. Her use of the word broken is fascinating. We already saw it in poems 85, 88, and 151. We'll see it in 1290. When we get to 1340, we'll enjoy the way that she plays the game. 1304. Not with a club the heart is broken, nor with a stone. A whip so small you could not see it, I've known, to lash the magic creature till it fell. Yet that whip's name too noble then to tell. Magnanimous's bird by boy decried, singing unto the stone of which it died. Shame need not crouch in such an earth as ours. Shame stand erect. The universe is yours. When we get to 1704, she'll say it this way: unto a broken heart no other one may go. Without the high prerogative itself hath suffered too. And then finally, when we get to 1736, for the last time she'll use it: proud of my broken heart, since thou didst break it. Proud of the pain I did not feel till thee. Proud of my night, since thou with moons dost slack it, not to partake thy passion, my humility. Thou canst not boast like Jesus, drunken without companion was the strong cup of anguish brewed for the Nazarene. Thou canst not pierce tradition with the peerless puncture. See, I usurped thy crucifix to honor mine. A poem like that, right at the end of our Johnson collection, is obviously going to excite us that at some point we'll get to read that poem and study it closer. We will come back here. Notice she says, till the broken creatures, notice again the S at the end of the word, we adored, might even say worshipped, for whole stains, all washed, transfigured, mended, meet us with a smile. Again, the transfigured word here might take us to the transfiguration of Christ in Luke 9:28-36. What exactly is it that Emily is doing here? I think it's very subversive at first, for sure. I think her argument is that the loss of the ideal is actually useful. It allows for us in the end to be comforted and to smile, that we don't have to have the ideal. We can in fact work with a broken ideal. At 2b, well, obviously the question is, what is the ideal she's referencing? Are we talking love? Are we talking politics? Are we talking theology? At 3a, I've mentioned Milton's Paradise Lost, and obviously Plato's Republic immediately comes to mind. At 3b, finally, what was a time when your ideal got jacked? When your ideal was in fact stained or broken? And to what degree did it make you love the concept or the creature or the ideal even more? I hope Emily is challenging you. Thank you.